Hi, welcome to Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. I'm your host, Haven, and today I'm curious about gentle parenting-ish. Gentle parenting-ish, which is how I would describe my take on gentle parenting is I kind of do it, kind of not fully sure what I think about overall, like what it means. And it may be a new term to you. Like if you don't have kids, you probably have never heard that. If you do have kids, it's all over the internet. It's basically all these memes of like the world on fire and you just being like, I'm trying really hard to gentle parent, and then it's just trash behind you. But I'm bringing out my guest right out of the gate. It is my friend Gaia.
Hello.
Welcome. She is a therapist and she has a background in child development. But primarily, we have a ton of conversations about gentle parenting.
Yes.
Because we're in a book club together.
Yes.
It's technically a mom book club, but you're an honorary member because you're the only child expert. We're all just winging it, but you're there with actual knowledge.
I'm so thankful to be there in the mix. We have the best time.
Yeah. But I wanted to bring you here because we talked about this before of the sense of what does it really mean? Do we think it's a good idea? What's it in response to? So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go together. If a parent is listening, they know the concepts, but if someone's not a parent, then this is totally new territory. Yeah. So why don't you tell us first of what is gentle parenting?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to share a little bit about gentle parenting. I think there are often phenomenons that happen in the parenting world, right? We ebb and flow through different themes, different models. And the most current one, like you've mentioned, is this idea of gentle parenting, of what does it look like to parent from this more gentle perspective. And it really has come out of, in my opinion, kind of the ebb and flow of how everything goes between extremes, right? So those of us that are parenting right now, a lot of us are in the millennial generation, and we came from a more authoritarian approach to parenting. And when you begin to poke holes in an experience you have and you reflect on kind of, okay, how was I parented? How do I want to parent? I think the pendulum has swung to the other extreme naturally. And gentle parenting is this framework around what does it look like to make the relationship the priority in parenting. So building a healthy attachment through teaching your child how to connect emotionally. So to teach that emotional expression and literacy, and then really building that relationship, problem solving within the context of the relationship, validating their experience and their emotion within the context of relationship, and connecting with them above all, and using all of those principles to build a healthy, strong, resilient, empathetic child.
Yeah. What I think of just the posture of authoritarian parenting is you're standing over your child, you're looking down, you're commanding them. It's very kind of firm grip. It doesn't mean that it's not loving. I just think it's a firmer kind of less of a response about emotions, where gentle parenting to me is you're eye to eye, you crouch down. You're looking at them, you're acknowledging them, you're in the moment with them. Yeah. And that's beautiful to hear. But we're going to get into a little bit of
the nuance.
Yeah, the nuance of it. But I also wanted to share a story of, I was thinking, because obviously as a millennial, you think of how was I raised and what do I like and what do I not like? And I saw something online that was saying someone was I hate the word disobedience. I don't ever want to use that with my kid. I don't think it's right. I think I just want to have them understand or that kind of thing. And I thought those really, the word nuanced is interesting because I was I don't mind disobedience or obedience to me. And I think it's if you have that trust and that bond with your caretaker, I think that's also the foundation of everything. An authoritarian parent can be I don't think it's right or wrong either way. If you have the trust and the love and the bond, although I think it's when it's oh, if you disobey me, you're wrong, you're in trouble, that's not okay. But it reminded me of a very funny story of my mom. So my mom was kind of different parent growing up than she is now. She's kind of hippie pants and has a nose ring now. But growing up, that lady was a little more by the book. And we would, as kids, my mom was very fun, but she also was okay, we're going to have boundaries and I'm the leader, which as a kid makes you feel safe, but it also comes out in funny ways where we had obedience training where she would
this story.
she would take us to the mall and she was like, guys, we're doing obedience training. And we just had to like obey whatever she said, which was, some of them were serious, some of them were intense. I think she was just training us to like listen to her voice and like not like fight back or question it all the time. I was very argumentative. And it would be like, okay, go do 5 jumping jacks in front of that store. Or like go up to this person and like request this, or like these kind of things.
Scavenger hunt, obedience edition.
Exactly. Like it was like a fun game. And sometimes it was like, okay, here's $5, go get a pretzel. But then sometimes it was like stuff that you're like, I don't really want to do that. But I was like, oh my gosh, like I definitely, like, I wouldn't say that my mom was not a gentle parent, but we were not like naming emotions, acknowledging them, like giving weight to them. It was like, okay, here's what it is. We're going to follow this together. And I love you and I care about you. And this is it.
Yeah.
And so I'm here trying to be like, what of that do I like? What of that do I want to incorporate in? And then what are the pieces where I'm like, I actually want to hear more about their emotions or what they think, or if that makes them uncomfortable, because I don't want just someone who's going to take whatever the authority says. I do want them to have their own, like, welcomed back and forth.
And I think that's where some of this conversation started. It was in our last book club. We were laughing about like gentle parenting-ish, because we could recognize the beauty of it. Like there are a lot of things we didn't have growing up that we're like, okay, let's add this in, you know? But how can we kind of turn this into like a mixed bowl of parenting, that there's a lot of different approaches. And like you said, they're not all good or all wrong. And I love the idea too, that like as the parent, you're the expert. You know your child the best. You are the one that spends the most time with them. And so you can read articles online. You can listen to this podcast. Like there's a lot of great information out there, but that's why we're going to talk about the nuance, because what your child needs versus what another child needs may be different, and trusting that instinct as a parent, right?
That's so
that
true.
You know what they need.
I love hearing that, because it's true. It's like, you know what they need, and your personality is uniquely different. Their personality is uniquely different. Even the way I parent my 2 kids, like Isley, just one look, you know, sensitive sweetheart. Echo, like you could hit him over the head and he was still just not really want to back down. They're just so different. They're so different. But okay, let's talk a little bit about like the more beautiful sides of gentle parenting that we love, and is also kind of, we didn't make up this term, so we also can't like add our own definition. So let's just kind of say like, okay, what does it mean when you hear it out in the world?
Absolutely. My favorite part of the gentle parenting model is the idea of the relationship, that like nothing trumps the relationship that you have with your child. And it's worth really connecting with them daily to build that relationship. And in the context of that relationship, you can approach the harder parts of parenting, right? So I think what that looks like is validation. A lot of the times your child is going to have big emotional experiences, especially in their little body. Those emotions can be so big. And so what does it look like to join them in that emotional experience? We talk a lot about like the power of name it to tame it, right? Like I'm going to call out what I'm seeing. That's validation. You're not giving permission. You're just saying, I see you. I'm with you. What does it look like to give choices? If we're going to problem solve, I want to do it with you, you know, like you're going to give us an example here, but I love that idea of how can we offer autonomy while still saying, we see you, we're with you in this. Do you have a story of time with Isley or Echo where you practiced some of these strategies and found them to be fruitful?
I mean, every school morning is very like hit or miss. It could either be great or it could just implode. So I think like what we would try and do is, especially before, it's like, okay, in 5 minutes, we're going to put our shoes on and leave like in 5 minutes. So like, it's kind of setting the tone, because it's also not dragging them out of what they want to do. Like that's kind of the thing too, is basically like if you were reading a book and I said like, put the book down and leave. You'd be like, oh, I want to finish the page. And it's like, no, we're leaving. So it's kind of also treating them with dignity or respect of like, they don't get real autonomy of their schedule. It's kind of saying, this is what's happening next, and having them acknowledge it. And then it's saying our biggest battle in the mornings is over socks. The kids hate socks. They never feel right, whatever that means. I know that little line. I'm trying to line it up.
Sensory experience.
Very sensory heavy. And so it's very much like, oh my gosh, please let the socks work. So it's kind of like, okay, Isley, like go pick out your socks and we're going to put our shoes on. If that ensues a meltdown, then it's like, okay, getting with her of like, I see that it's really upsetting that these socks are uncomfortable. Like, I see that you're really upset by these socks, and we need to go to school. Like, do you want to wear these blue ones or do you want to wear the pink ones? So there's the choice.
Yep.
Okay. And then it's not working. Okay. Mommy's going to choose for you. Mommy's going to put on the pink socks and we're going to go. That's usually where it's just very upset, not happy about it, you know, but like holding the boundary.
Is that where the ish comes in a little bit of our gentle parenting model?
That's where the ish, because like when you read these books, they're like, and then you give the choice and then you carry them to school.
And then they happily waltz out the door and go to school.
Yes. They like finish crying and are like, you know, now off on their way. And you're like, no, it's like down the hallways, like our poor neighbors. I'm like, okay, like, you know, every morning, like 8:40, like
they hear you.
Best of luck. You know, I hope you're not sleeping in, you know, like, and so I feel like that's where it goes of like, also how much time can you really stay there and be like, I know you're upset. It doesn't feel right. It's like, you then do have to keep it moving.
Do you feel like that can be helpful to pause and acknowledge what your own personal bandwidth in that moment is as a parent? Like, is this a good time for me to really practice this gentle parenting model of sitting in these emotions? I have the bandwidth, I have the time. Versus today, I said we were going to be there at 8:30. It's 8:15. We have to go. I'm going to very lovingly set a boundary and move through this. That there's like more nuance to how the parent even makes the decision of what that's going to look like.
And I think it's also so much like case by case. Is like, I try and always have a runway up front. I heard once that it says like a rushed child is an anxious child. So I try and build in so much time of like, I'm never like, we have to go, you're late. Like, it's very, we're leaving now and trying to kind of bring into it. But there is coming a time where it's like, hey, we're leaving. You know, I'm carrying you, mommy's going to hold you, or those kind of things. So it is like, I do think there is also the burden as the parent of being like, parenting like consciously takes time.
Yeah.
The kids are not on your time schedule. Like, you have to create your time schedule with enough time to give them these tools to set them up. And it is messy and it is like not fun. You know, like, but I'm also like, I don't want every morning her morning to be miserable. I'd rather give enough time of, if you want to, in those 5 minutes, try on like 5 socks. That's okay. I'm not going to force you right away.
I think that is so well said, because I think that's the heart of gentle parenting. The heart of gentle parenting is when you have the space, when you have the moments, this is the ideal. But yet we can read those books and this is the perfect model. This is the perfect way to do it. And it can feel kind of defeating because it's not always possible when we have a home full of kids and a busy work schedule.
No.
So knowing that you have permission to do the best you can, but that your intention is so good and it's rooted in some of those really beautiful practices in gentle parenting. And then we have the ish, which is the other sides that we have to acknowledge that we're living within the confines of, you know, the structure of our day. And we're doing the best we can.
And another part of the ish that I find is that it's also one of the concerns I think of, okay, these kids that are growing up with this is like, everyone's catering to their emotions. Like, everyone's helping them name them. Everyone's sitting them. Like, that's just not life. And I don't want to be like, I'm going to prepare you for life and make the home stink for you. But I do want it to be like, we can't sit here and talk about socks forever. Like, you do need to be at school. I need to be at work. Like, I have commitments that are then being impacted. So I feel like the gentle parenting ish to me is, you know, you can get so enveloped in the naming of the feelings and the acknowledging of the feelings and all of this that like, there's no like, it's time. Like, that's where I think it also kind of gets, and not in like a gendered dynamic way, but like when my husband comes in, it's very clear. And I'm always internally like, oh, harsh, you know, like, oh, brunt force. Sure? Yeah. Like, ooh, you know, like, but I'm thinking, I think they need both. Like, and I'm not saying they need, a mom and a dad. I do think there is something to having the soft hand and the firm hand. And it also being in representative sometimes of different people. I don't think it should be like, oh, one partner always needs to lay down the law and the other one's nurturing. But I do think there's safe for them to be like, oh, both of these people love me. And this one loves me in a different way, which is more direct, a little more, you know, intense. And then this one loves me in a softer way. And they're both safe to me.
And I think what you're saying is that boundaries are an expression of love.
Yes.
Right? That by setting boundaries in your home, whether it's coming from the softer hand or the more authoritative hand, that both of those things can be loving. So maybe we can kind of pivot to this other side of, yes, of express the emotion. Yes, we want to build your emotional vocabulary. We want to sit with you. We want to build the relationship. And boundaries provide safety for a child. They're predictable. Children need them and they want them.
And boundaries, to me, are actually not about their behavior. It's about what I plan to do. Where it's like, okay, I will not let you hit mommy. It's not saying don't hit mommy or don't hit your sister. It's I will not let you. If you cannot do that with your body, I'm going to hold your arms tight because I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect you and your sibling. Like I will not let you. Because that also, when they're so overwhelmed and dysregulated, like them saying they can't, then it's like they're way less in control even more. You know, but someone who's like the parent who's like, I'm firm, I'm in control. This is not about your behavior. This is about what I'm saying. I feel like is also the heavy hand in a boundary oriented way.
Absolutely. So our mom book club is like a Dr. Becky fan club.
Oh my gosh.
Anything Dr. Becky says we will do.
Dream guest, by the way. Anyone who has a hookup with Dr. Becky.
Are you out there? You listening?
Yes, you could be my first virtual guest. I'll figure it out just for you.
Absolutely. But she talks a lot about this you wish concept, which I think is a form of a boundary paired with validation. Could you talk about a time where maybe you've practiced the you wish model?
Well, yeah, because it's when something's happening and it's either for their good or for their safety. Like I don't want to say I'm sorry because I'm actually not, but I also still want to acknowledge that they have a differing need. So it's the way that you can kind of bridge that gap is saying, oh, you wish that didn't happen. You wish that mommy could stay home with you today. Like you wish you didn't have to, you know,
wear socks on this cold day,
wear socks on this freezing day and you can wear your open toe sandals, you know, you wish you could wear these shoes that are 2 sizes too small. You know, it's acknowledging, it's not saying I'm sorry you can't because I'm really not, but it's also just hearing that. Cause I think sometimes as a kid, they just want to be like, yeah, like, I mean, not as a kid, as an adult.
Yeah. Every day.
I would want someone to be like, oh, you wish that, you know, that conversation didn't go that way.
And I feel like it just, as adults, we can recognize what that does is calms our nervous system. Like, oh, you heard me.
Yes.
Okay. I might not be getting what I asked for, but you listened.
Totally.
And the child may not be able to verbalize that experience, but I think you will notice a shift in how they transition to the next thing when you just say, I heard what you were saying. I didn't just blow over it. Right.
And I think that's also going back to like gentle parenting. It's seeing them as respectable humans. It's seeing them as people of dignity in the baby's body. You know, like you are a human who is worth listening to. I'm the leader of this home and I'm going to make the best choices with the information I have, but I do care about what you have to say. And I'm going to help you navigate, you know, in ways where you feel out of control. So I think that's it too of it's not just like completely laissez-faire, but it is enough like strength.
And I think that points back to another parenting tool that we use a lot of both and. Like it isn't all this, it's not all that. It's really a combination of them both, which is so individual to the family.
Oh, I love both and. And then another thing that we quote all the time are 2 things can be true.
2 things can be true. It will come up by the end of this episode.
It's just so good where it's like 2 things can be true. Like you really wanted ice cream for dinner and we're going to eat this, you know, broccoli or whatever.
Yep, gotta have your veggie.
Gotta have your veggie. We need a better 2 things can be true because the one I gave was actually not accurate. Okay. I mean, it was, but it's just not a good example.
But it's a little more simplistic. Yeah. I think another example might be when you reflect on your own parenting model, which is a very common experience when you begin parenting for the first time. And maybe saying, hey, there were some principles my parents used that I really did not like. And looking back, I can see how it was a little bit difficult. And I don't want to model that in my parenting. But the 2 things that can be true are I love my parents. They did the best that they could with what they had, with the knowledge they had at the time. And I'm not going to do that with my parenting. And I can acknowledge that that probably wasn't the best tactic.
It's a much better example.
Very applicable to our topic.
Exactly. Okay. But other tools, I brought this one from my fridge over there. It's the feelings chart that we use with the kids. If you're just listening on audio, it's got probably like 16 different cartoons of kids doing different responses. And then you can just bring this. I got this on Amazon. It's a fridge magnet. You can do it at dinner in the mornings. But I like it where they say like point to two feelings that you're feeling in the moment. It's not even just limited to one. My favorite that my 2-year-old son did was he was feeling frustrated and appreciated.
That's why we love Echo.
Yeah. And I was like, what a twist. Like, I wonder how that even works inside your body, but I mean, go for it. But that helps too, is like, even as adults, we'll go through and we'll name these things here. Or one other thing that we do at dinner is we always share, because I have toddlers. This can be, you know, more descriptive as they get older, but we say, what was your thumbs up for today? And what was your thumbs down for today? It's like, what was the thumbs up moment? What was the thumbs down? And it was also, it's fun to kind of see of like, oh, what did they enjoy that day? Yeah. Like my son's, it's always a food he ate. Whatever was the most recent food he ate was his thumbs up. Isley's thumbs up is like always me, which is just tender. It's whatever she and I did together that day. Like the connection, like without fail. And it's so honoring. But then also like, what was your thumbs down? You know, like it's okay. Everyone has thumbs down moments in the day. Like what was it? And talking about it at dinner.
Now a quick pause to hear from my sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Efficientaid. Efficientaid offers fractional virtual assistants whose sole purpose is to help people who are making a difference. Are you bogged down in your email and still managing your own calendar? Delegating those tasks to a high-caliber career assistant can free you up to utilize your time towards the areas of your best and highest use, allowing you to focus on the areas you truly thrive in. Learn more at efficientaid.com. That's efficient, AIDE.com. Okay, back to the episode.
I also think we can pause and think about strategies that help the parent too. Because we're talking so much about what it looks like to validate the child, to be present with the child. That is not easy when you as the parent are not calm. Yeah. Because if the goal of gentle parenting is to bring calm into a child's chaos, right? Because chaos and chaos are going to create a bigger fire. So if your role is to bring the calm, what do you do when you're not calm, right? And we're talking about these strategies right here of naming feelings, which is a great start.
It's so true, because it's like one of the other books that we read was Sissy Goff, The Worry-Free Parent. And she says it's a parent's job to be the calmest person in the room. But it's like, how do you do that? I want you to share what you actually helped with Aaron. One time, Gaia and I were off getting coffee or something, and Aaron called, and he's like, I'm just feeling really anxious in my body. And I was like, I'm sitting with a literal therapist. Like, why don't we just see what she would say? And you really helped him. And he's been using the strategy that you taught him. Will you tell us about it?
Yeah, I would be happy to share a little bit about the 5 senses activity. The 5 senses, the goal behind the 5 senses is to help you come into the present moment. Oftentimes, if you're feeling flooded or feeling anxious, you're being removed to either something that's already happened or something in the future. And so there's such a gift of just being in your present moment. So if you take your 5 hands and it's 5
your 5 hands.
Okay. So when you're feeling flooded, a great grounding tool is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So you have 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And that can really help you come back into the present moment when your mind is drawn to the future or the past.
And I think it's good too of like, not only teaching like your children, but even yourself of what's happening in your brain when you're feeling flooded, of like your logic, your reasoning, you're not really able to make good decisions. But you told us once about the wise owl and the barking dog. Can you tell us about that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this tool because I think the more you know about how your body works and your brain works, it makes you feel in control, right? And that's a grounding experience as well. So this is called I Flipped My Lid kid version. So if you hold your hand up like this, it's a brain, right? And the top 4 fingers are your prefrontal cortex. That's the thinking part of your brain. And the bottom, your thumb, is the limbic system. And that is the emotional part of your brain, the fight or flight part of your brain. So as an adult, right, when we get very emotional and respond in an emotional way over a logical way, we flip our lid And our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain in charge of problem solving and thinking and planning, is offline. And we can't access it until we calm down our brain and our body and come back to our online prefrontal cortex again. The kid version of this is my barking dog got so loud. That's my emotional brain. I got really, really emotional. I got frustrated. I got angry. And my emotional brain took over. And my dog barked so loud that it scared my wise owl away. And my wise owl flew away because it got scared from the dog. So it's really hard to plan, to make decisions, to problem solve, to say I'm sorry when our wise owl is gone. So as a parent, we get to join them in this role of, how do I get the wise owl to come home, right? And a lot of that looks like the breathing strategies, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the choices, the validation of you are feeling frustrated, or let's look at the feeling chart. What are you feeling? You get to be in that experience together to get their wise owl to come home, to be able to move through that frustration.
I love that visual because it goes so much around the name it to tame it of like when you're in your body and you're flooded, even as an adult, it's really hard to even kind of acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, this is my brain's chemical response, I really need to get that in order before I can actually make the best decision. It feels less overwhelming. And you also feel a little more in control of your body where otherwise it just feels like you did flip your lid.
And we all have moments we can point to where we flipped our lid. But the more you can even reflectively look back and be like, oh, that was a moment where we flipped our lid, or that's a moment where our wise owl flew away. Silly owl, he got scared, you know, and how do we get him to come back home? And it's great. Like that's something toddlers can understand. And as they grow up through adolescence and high school and adulthood, you can start to use different language around flipping your lid instead of the wise owl leaving, whatever is most applicable to your home. Haven, I would love to know, as a mom in the trenches, have you had a moment where your desire has been gentle parenting and you're like, I'm flooded and I had to lay down a hard boundary, and I don't necessarily feel that it was inappropriate, but it maybe wasn't the ultimate goal that I had in this moment. Could you share about a time where maybe you found yourself in that situation and how you repaired that rupture with your child?
Totally. I mean, we had kind of discussed that kind of thought before, and I was trying to think, and I was like, I don't think I've had a like unleash, unload on my kids moment. And I'm not saying that in like, hey, I'm awesome. I'm saying in that, and I haven't exploded on them. I will take that internally and explode on myself in a way that is detrimental. In the sense of, to regulate a calm child, you have to be regulated, and it's really hard. So it's almost like I won't go out on them. I just go almost like too like detached or disassociated, or just kind of in a sense of just like a deep breathing, or in a way where I'm like, I'm not even actively like in this with them because it's so dysregulating that like, I'm just going to like, you know, kind of stay here and calm in the way of like, okay, I'm not going to lose it on my kids, but in a way that like, I think I sometimes may rob them of seeing a big emotion that's actually accurate. Because I was thinking about this where we were driving in the car. One of our kids kept interrupting me, and my husband, Aaron, were trying to talk. And he at one point was like, hey, it's really annoying me when you keep interrupting, like stop interrupting. And again, I was thinking, oh, like harsh, like we can say like, hey, I know you want to talk to us, but remember we said like, if you want to talk, then you put your hand on my arm, and then I put my hand on that. That means I've heard you and I'm going to get to you, like thinking it was a coaching thing. But I was like, dude, it is annoying. Like they kind of need to know it's annoying, and not everything can be teaching. Like to some regard, I'm like, I don't know who's going to tell the kid that's annoying to interrupt. Like if I'm always like, here's how you should actually do it. Like there's both there, but I think I need to lean into a little more of letting them see my big emotions, where they kind of see it in my reactions with Aaron. Cause I think it's great for the kids to see us to like have some fights or disagreement, nothing name calling or intense, but just, hey, I have different parents with different opinions. Yeah. As long as they see us repair, always of, hey, daddy, I'm sorry that I raised my voice. I was having some big feelings. Will you please forgive me? Or I'm sorry it was this. To the extent of we were in the kitchen having like a heated argument, and Isley came in between us, and she put her hands like a T, and she was like, guys, stop squabbling. Squabbling. I was like, I don't think I've ever told you this word. How did you come up with
That's exactly what we're doing.
Exactly what we're doing. And I was like, okay, you're right. Like, I let the kids see my big emotions with Aaron, but I don't have them do it with me because I think, oh, they don't know better. Like, oh, they don't see. Where I think last night, where it was a long day, Aaron had a work thing. I was solo getting the kids, doing the dinner. I don't know. This is a little bit of a tangent. I would like to take a poll of how many of your kids poop in the tub because my kids freaking love it. I cannot get them to stop. They are so relaxed and I like try and carry them over. And I was talking to one of my girlfriends. She was like, no, man, like that's not a thing. She was like, my kids don't do that to the extent that yours do. But it's also like they choose when I'm alone to do this. Totally. And then it's like, oh gosh, scooping it out and disinfecting the bath and rinsing them off. Like all that to say is like, I really would have loved to be like mad, but I was thinking, oh man, like, you know, you're not, one of them is not potty trained. The other one I can definitely get mad at, but the non-potty trained one, you know, did it. And I like didn't let them see my big emotions in the way of like, maybe I should have.
Absolutely. I think that's so funny. And that's where those memes are coming from, right? Of like, my child just pooped in the tub. And now I have to have this like really calm, empathetic, getting down, making eye contact about like, it's okay. It was a learning experience. Yes. Like, no, actually you just derailed mom's entire evening.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm sorry you're cold standing there. I'm touching your poop. Like, well, I don't know. What do you want me to say to you?
And I just don't think there's like a textbook response to that. No. You know, if you had an outburst, I think that would have been totally fine because you're going to repair when you put them to bed. Hey, we made a mistake at bath time. That wasn't fun for mommy. That wasn't fun for you.
Actually, it was fun for them. Just kidding.
No, mom's reaction wasn't fun for you.
Mom's reaction wasn't fun for you.
Absolutely. I love all the ups and downs we just went through with that story. There was so much there. There's so many questions I could pull out and ask, like clarifying thoughts you have about things. But something that came to mind was kind of like the bathtub incident last night or the moment in the living room where you can't necessarily walk away, right? That, you know how you regulate best. You love taking a walk, a bath, like those things are indulgent, but we don't always have those luxuries in the moment as a parent. What do you practice in the moment of, okay, detaching is one way to kind of move through the situation, but ideally we would like to move through it in a little more of a regulated state. So what tools do you try and practice for the in the moment parenting moments where you need to stay calm?
In my healthiest state, it's just breathing. Like it is staying there and it is like, oh, I can remain regulated and not be so flooded that I'm just, you know, going inward. It's like a big, like in through the nose, out through the mouth of like, like just breathing it out. Cause also I think it signals to the kid, like this is a lot happening.
I love that. You can model to them.
Yeah. And showing and being like, or there's the square breathing, box breathing, where it's like, I know I actually read this about, it's good for young kids who are in school because you can do it at your desk, but you can do it anywhere where you take your finger and you put it on your leg. And then for 4 counts, you kind of draw a line and then you hold it in the corner and then you release it as you go to the next line, like making a square. And then you do that all the way around the square of just like, okay, I'm going to regulate my breathing. I'm going to connect to my central nervous system. I'm not going to try and remain in this fight or flight and like calming myself. And I like, it's quiet here. It's so easy to do this right now. It's a lot different when, you know, there's chaos around, but it is kind of saying, okay, like I'm going to find my inner calm, my inner peace, and I'm going to set the tone because I cannot react to your chaos with my chaos. That's not going to help anyone. So it's actually better for me while you're having chaos to step to the side, recenter and assess myself, and then re-enter into the difficult moment. I think a lot of that too is a part of like the gentle parenting-ish we talk about, where it's like you read these strategies and it's like, those are amazing in theories. Like that's a great playbook. On the field, it feels different. And so it's saying like, yes, in an ideal scenario, I can remain calm with you and connected. Sometimes that's just too much for me. And so what I'm going to do is go take care of my peace and come back. So I think it's the gentle parenting-ish is it's thinking of all the benefits of the child. Like it would benefit the child to have someone fully engaged or all that stuff. I also have to feel like, where's the benefit of the parent of how can I make sure that I'm staying holistic and not cutting off sections of myself in order to be the best parent to you, where that's also just, you know, maybe not even sustainable. Like that's not like a long-term thing.
Yes. And they may not know it in the moment, the gift that you're giving them by taking care of yourself. By stepping away, by not giving them that validation that they're seeking in that present moment, because you would bring the chaos in that moment and you need to go take care of yourself and connect with your spouse. I'm so passionate about the family, and the family is healthy when the individuals are healthy, and when the parents operate in health, the children grow up in a safe space to also grow up in health. So yes, the gentle parenting movement would tell you to tune into your child all of the time. That is the goal. But there is a both and there of tuning into yourself too, so that you're creating that healthy home.
Absolutely. And I think the beautiful takeaway that I like to incorporate from it is I'm going to raise a empathetic, emotionally in tune, resilient, kind human. Like that's what I'm trying to. It's not like I'm the boss. Follow me. It's I honor you. I care about you. I'm here to guide you. And I'm the leader here. But that also, I want them to grow up in a sense of knowing who they are and not just, you know, what I've said is right or wrong, but for them to feel like, okay, well, I always felt heard, and they may not agree growing up with certain things, but they want them to have the freedom to vocalize and understand their own individual like feelings on something. Like they can acknowledge what they're feeling. They can acknowledge when they're flooded. And then also they've hopefully had the boundary enough where they also know, and I can come out on the other side, or these feelings don't have to overwhelm me and I don't have to stay stuck in them. I think what I want to end on is like, if this is a new concept for someone of like resources they can learn. And we've read so many books in our book club. Like my favorite one is Dr. Becky's Good Inside. I love that one. I also am loving what Sissy Goff writes with, she has one called Raising Worry-Free Girls and The Worry-Free Parent. And then her counterpart of who she's in therapy with, I forget his name.
David Thomas.
He did Raising Emotionally Strong Boys, which I really liked because it is like, there are different takeaways from each of those. Yeah. But if maybe someone's not a reader, there's some YouTube videos people can watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of great content out there. Dr. Dan Siegel is someone that I highly recommend. He does such a great job of explaining what is going on in the brain and body when it comes to dysregulation and regulation. And he makes some great video content about the hand-brain model, which is what I was talking about with the wise owl and the barking dogs. Hopefully that can help you develop the language to communicate that to your child.
I love that. And it also kind of, I have gotten some requests from people who email in to hello@havenpod.com. They've asked about books or a book club, but if there's an appetite, I think it'd be fun to do like a virtual book club.
That'd be amazing.
In some type of ways, because that's what I find of like benefit of like the experience share from like the other like women in our groups and the things that we talk about. And so I'm open to it. If you'd be interested, then shoot me an email, hello@havenpod.com, or join my newsletter. You can go to havenpod.com and sign up for that. That's where the most up-to-date information is. I send a once a month little extra thing there.
I love getting the email.
Oh yeah, you're on the list,
such a
girl.
highlight. I'm on the list.
But overall, Gaia, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations on air and off. They're
I know.
Best.
I feel like all we did was just add mics to like what we do at coffee.
Know, it's true, but that's the best way it can be. So
totally. Well, okay. Overall, just as a closer, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Maybe if you weren't a parent and you're like, what is this? And it was interesting to you, or maybe you gleaned some stuff if you choose to be a parent later on, or maybe the other like kids in your life are also very emotionally stunted adults that maybe could hear some of this that could help with, or maybe you do have children in your home and this gave you at least maybe one takeaway that you could practice. But my ask is that you please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And then sign up for the newsletter, havenpod.com. Other than that, you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube @Haven the Podcast. And then I'll see you in 2 weeks.